Welcome, everybody, to Mindset Monday. It's another beautiful Monday here. Thanks for tuning in. I have an amazing guest today who I'm going to introduce in just a few minutes, but a little bit about this podcast and about the Game Plan U community. Game Plan U is a membership community of startup founders, executives in residence, career seekers, talent, all coming together to support one another. We help founders in sports, innovation, technology, health and wellness, really looking to build their business, to validate their business and get some deal flow. We have executives in residence who are amazing mentors who are sometimes looking for deal flow, but really just looking to give back to the community and help people who are just starting out to be as successful as they can be. We also have an amazing vertical of career seekers, talent, interns, young adults, people who are pivoting in their career, people who are just graduating college, looking to get into sports innovation and technology, career, industry. And we give them opportunities to work with our founders and with us on one-off projects to build their portfolio and their resume. And so this community comes together. It's so supportive, and it's a really wonderful way to really learn about, get involved in sports technology, and see what the latest and greatest things that are happening in the world and how we consume, how we interact with, and how we play sports. So if you're at all interested, check us out at www.gameplanu.org. This podcast is part of that community. I am the executive director of Game Plan U, and I am super excited to do this podcast because as a therapist for 20 years, my job was to get into the 6 inches in between people's ears and understand how they operate and how they show up to their day. This podcast is not much different than that. What I do on this podcast is talk to people who are being successful, who are doing amazing things. And everybody thinks, wow, they've got it all together, or they just had it easy. They just had things handed to them. I talk about the real stuff, the grit, the resilience, the stuff that they had to go through to build who they are today, to get to where they are today, so that people who are looking to get into their own business, starting their own business, or just looking to be successful in their careers, have some information about what it takes to be successful, the real stuff at the end of the day that helps us to be successful. So without further ado, I am going to introduce my guest, Mr. Brian J. Esposito, who is founder and CEO of Esposito Intellectual Enterprises. He is ranked among the world's top 10 CEOs for 2020 in the World CEO Rankings awarded by Adria Management, LLC. So he started his own company, and founder and CEO, as I said, of Esposito Intellectual Enterprises, and he is an award-winning serial entrepreneur and business leader. And he's recently renowned for being part of a core innovative team to build Nodal, the world's largest wireless network and ecosystem of connected devices, and for one of his early businesses, which ranked among the fastest growing private companies by Inc. 5000 for 6 consecutive years. In December 2019, he was featured in the Corporate Investment Times, the next gen investment magazine in the Middle East. With over 20 years of experience in high-profile executive roles involving complex business challenges and high-stakes decisions, Brian founded Esposito Intellectual Enterprises, EIE, in New York in 2013. So wholly owned by Brian, EIE currently has 65 entities within its entities, within and over 150 joint ventures that have been accumulated around the world over the last 20 years. So to date, there are over 25 industry focuses and just 1 degree separating any industry or market that Brian may want to enter into and do business with. So with a technique that he has spent years perfecting, Brian connects not only the right people, but the right people at the right time, which is a talent and an art for sure. And one of his favorite sayings, or one of the things that he says most often, is integrity is at the core of who we are and what we do at EIE. We strive to do good business with good people. And he's good people. I know that for sure because I've heard lots of great things about him, and I've met him briefly, but I'm super excited to bring him on. Mr. Brian Esposito, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I'm good, Denise. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, super excited to have you on today. You have done so much in your career. You have I just from all the different things you've done in global development and beauty and fashion and technology and music and entertainment and transportation and liquor. I mean, how did you let's start at the beginning because I feel like this is a progression here. So tell us how you started in the business and how you've gotten to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started in the beauty industry in the late 90s, and I built the first B2B, B2C e-commerce platform to bring consumers and professionals to me. The reason I built it was that I was tired of driving around to salons and spas, again, in the late 90s throughout New Jersey and New York. It was really impossible to scale and hit all the places I wanted to hit and actually grow a big business. So between good timing, having access to great products, teaching myself how to code, I built what was a pretty phenomenal global website. During that process, because we were such a focus, entertainers came to me, celebrities came to me, athletes, actors and actresses to build beauty brands for them. And then what we did was we built the brand and we had the reach. So we were the distributor, we were the retailer. What I did wrong for so long was that I didn't attach myself to the brand as far as ownership and equity. I was at the time very happy just being that middle person, getting the brand, selling the brand. But ultimately what happened was these brands became $100 million, billion-dollar brands that sold to L'Oreal, Procter & Gamble, Wella at the time, Revlon, Estee Lauder. And then my mindset was so wrong. I just said, okay, well, I'll just go find the next brand. And I did this over and over and over again. Because I was asked to be part of so many industries, the beauty industry touches the music industry, it touches the fashion industry. It's kind of like the mafia, the beauty industry. It's attached to everything. And once you're in it, it's very hard to get out of it. So then I said, okay, well, what if I made a band? If I developed a band, I would then build the products for the band and the pie would get a little bigger. Then we would make an apparel company. So I'd say, well, I'll just own the apparel company. So again, making it bigger and bigger. And I just kept building my own companies to service the need that I was in my mind. I needed to protect my world and I needed to stop having people use me and invite me into their world. I had to flip the script and create a really interesting ecosystem where then I invited people into my world. I know my nature and my generosity. I'll always do the right thing and I'll split the pie equally with everybody involved, but it's a much better and healthier mindset and a business strategy to have people come into your world, control how it is so you're not left waiting for people to maybe make right on their promises or chasing people for money. It's a very exhausting, deflating, and it just weighs you down. It weighs you down completely when you expect people to do the right thing. And unfortunately, a lot of people probably listening know that isn't always the case. And then you start to beat yourself up and all of a sudden you're in this snowball spiral downward and it's hard to get out of it. So, rather than me getting completely discouraged or negative or angry at the world and why does this continue to happen? Well, it continues to happen because my model was wrong. And then, after it took me 5 years to perfect it. Well, it took me 15 years doing it wrong. And then it took me 5 years to perfect it. Now I've built what I think is a really interesting model. It's always adding value to our own company, our own holdings, and also the wonderful companies that I get to partner with. And, like you mentioned about my bio, as long as we're choosing the right people to work with, good people with integrity, little to no greed. I mean, not to be Gordon Gekko, but there is a little bit of good about greed because it motivates you. It makes you want to go out and accomplish more. But, I'm very sensitive to people with massive egos, massive amounts of greed. To me, it's like food poisoning. I don't want to work with those people. I'm not judging them, to each their own. But for me, I just like to work with good people that love to do good projects, and the money's a byproduct to those efforts.
Yeah. And what an amazing journey, though. And just kind of looking at this from the outside in, you had opportunities, right? You saw opportunities and people started coming to you, but you were always thinking and always innovating and always kind of looking at your business and taking a step back from it. Instead of just being in it and running it, you were looking at it operationally and what's working and what's not working. And I think many times founders, startups who are getting it are so in the trenches all the time that they don't take that step back and they're not thinking about what needs to change or shift or pivot. So can you talk a little bit about that? Is that something that you just naturally had? Is it something you learned? Like, where did you develop that ability?
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit instinctual and natural. And also my mind works so much better with a lot going on. So the more that I'm involved with, the more opportunities I see, the way I can connect the dots. It's kind of a a detriment to my mind that I remember everything, because I can meet somebody today that's doing something in some different industry, and my mind just remembers immediately a guy or a girl that I met in the airport 12 years ago, and then I
Yeah.
connect those people. That's just how I'm wired. I love being a connector. I love the way of making value and bringing opportunities to people. And like you mentioned on my intro, I was doing that wrong for so long too, because it's the right people, but at the right time. You need to know when you bring these people together. You need to know what your role is when you're doing that, and how are you compensated, and how are you going to be valued for that relationship, and how are you part of the upside. But I think it's very important within reason to be in the trenches. Like every aspect of business that I'm in, I want to know what's going on. I want to be involved with the end customer, the distribution, whether it's technology, the software developers. I need to know how that whole process is going. If there's any weak or loose chains in that system or in that process, I need to know so we can fix it, so we can enhance it, so we can bring in the right resources.
Mm.
But it is important not to. You got to do what you're good at. You got to focus on what you're good at, and you can't micromanage everything. And then you're going to have to ultimately hope you have the right people and resources internally to focus on the things that you're not good at. And
Mm.
that's how you build a great team. But it is important to know what the hell's going on, so you don't get the rug pulled from under you at some point.
Yeah, so finding the balance between being in the trenches but also observing as the leader what needs to get done, and bringing in those right people that you're talking about. How big was your team with the first beauty
Too big.
product business? Really?
Yeah, it was too big. Yeah, that was one of my problems is my over generosity, and I want to help people. I want to bring everybody in. I want everybody to thrive and flourish, and that is a very exhausting balance. If you're someone like me that wants to help family members, that wants to bring in people you went to high school with, that wants to help people and bring them into a role, I did that so wrong. I put people that I liked into roles that they weren't qualified for. So,
Mm.
not that they failed, but I didn't pull the right people. And being that you're involved in the sports industry, this is how I talk to myself now. The Yankee scouts are not throughout New York. They're not in the Bronx. They're all over the world looking for people. And when I was building
Yeah.
the beauty industry, I brought in what I thought was the best of the best in Monmouth County, New Jersey. I
Mm.
should have been. We were a global company, but I was only looking very small as to who can I recruit, who can I bring in to help build this thing, who's the right qualifications, who's the right personalities to be in that kind of industry and that kind of role. But what was amazing is what we did with me not putting the right people in the right roles was pretty phenomenal.
Mm.
What was very discouraging is in 2016, which is really pushed me to change my model. I got into a very bad car accident. A drunk driver hit me head on, and I shouldn't be here. But when you pulled me out of what I built and had all these people all over the place running what I thought that they were doing good jobs at, you took me out of the equation because I wasn't capable of doing my normal routine. Everything fell apart. They were not the right people in the right roles, and I was actually doing everything and paying everybody because it made me feel good. And at the end of the day, when my world turned upside down and things were a mess, these people that I relied on, that I co-signed for cars on, that I helped them get homes, I couldn't get an hour from them. And that was a very disheartening and discouraging place to be. Not only was I dealing with concussion issues and getting back on my feet health wise, I was dealing with an emotional, mental abuse of what the hell is going on here. We're all these people that I was there for, that I helped, that I was what I thought bettering their lives, they were not reciprocating when I needed them. Very, very tough to deal with, as any
Yeah.
entrepreneur knows. I'm sure everybody has their war stories and their battle scars, but it was a position I never wanted to be in ever again. And I changed my entire landscape. I changed my entire model. My inner circle now is myself, a couple of dogs, and then legal, accounting, private security, and compliance. That's my inner circle. These are professional companies that have my best interests at heart because I'm paying them to do so. I don't have that friendship, emotional connection. There's a job to be done and they're doing their job. And then outside of that, there's a buffer and there's some procedures now that protect me to ensure that I'm not being my natural self in certain situations. I need to make sure that I'm doing what's best for the businesses, what's best for the models, and that the right people are in the right roles. So it's again, it's not my natural routine. I want everybody to be part of something and do great things together, but that got me in harm's way, and I'll never do that again.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I'm glad that everything worked out with your health and that you made a full, it seems like you've made a full recovery and have rebounded quite well. And I'm obviously sorry for that experience, but glad that you've made it back and probably better than you were before.
Thank you.
Uh, Interesting though that we tend to learn more from negative experiences than we ever do from positive ones. And you were learning a lot about your business in the process of doing everything you were doing with your people, but you learned a whole heck of a lot more when things started to go wrong. And when,
Oh yeah.
yeah, so, and I think that that's something that we tend to look negatively at negative situations. We don't want to go through them. We want to avoid them. We want to try to, look to make things positive all the time. But I think it's in those darkest moments when we learn the most about ourselves. Would you agree with that?
I do, and you have two choices to make. You either go deeper and darker into a personality or a hole, or you flip it and you come out stronger, smarter, and you become more positive. I chose to be the more positive route. Granted, there's times and hours and days where I could feel like I'm getting beat up left and right, but that there's outside situations you can't control. But what you can control is how you react to those things, how much you internalize it, how much time you give it. There's a great quote. I wish it was mine. I often use if you had $86,400 in the bank and someone stole $10 from you, would you spend the $86,390 to go get it back? Most people say no.
Yeah.
And then you add the whole idea of time to that. And well, there's 86,400 seconds in a day. If someone were to steal those 10 seconds, are you going to spend the rest of the day worrying about it, making yourself sick over it, and doing things that are even outside of your control? So yeah, answer your question. I've seen people go one of two ways. I've seen incredible people that I, from afar, I idolized or I thought were exceptional exceptional people, and when times got bleak, they crumbled. And I've saw this a lot, and you possibly did in 2020 with this whole COVID situation and political unrest and economic uncertainties. And people that I thought were very well seasoned that could handle anything, they got in harm's way. You've seen brands and companies disappear that you never thought would see disappear.
Yeah.
And that's all based upon poor leadership and not the right resources behind them and not the right strategies. And I love how nimble we are. I mean, we can pivot in seconds. When the market's demanding something, that's why it's so great to have access to so many different industries. We create products and services and solutions that the market needs, and we get them to market. You got to be fast. You can't be like that Titanic ship trying to avoid an iceberg. You have to be able to pivot, move, and make the right moves. And you got to do things within your experience. There was so many CEOs that I do business with that were in one industry, and all of a sudden they're trying to sell billions of masks or billions of hand sanitizers. And I'm like, do you even realize you're not in a real deal? This is not. They're not going to go to you if you were a restaurateur and all of a sudden you're in the mask, and it doesn't make sense. You don't have any experience in that. You don't have any relationships in that. You don't know any manufacturers in that. You're not involved in a real deal, and someone's using your great name to justify their credibility. They're going to be taking money, stealing money, or maneuvering money, and you're going to be the one that's left out in the wind, and you're ruining your integrity and you're jeopardizing everything that you've built. And I've seen dozens, if not hundreds of people that have gone down that route. And it's not to knock them. They were trying to figure out how they're going to survive when their entire business was turned off.
Completely agree. And when we think about accelerating, and it's such an important word when we talk about, figuring out how to grow a company. In 300 years or however long, the car hasn't been around that long, but I was reading an article the other day about the cars have not changed that much dynamically. And when you look at them, they've still got the same number of wheels, things, there's a little bit more technology and all of that, but it took however many years, it's 150 years that cars have been around, or 100 and however many years. We just in 2016 developed a car without a steering wheel, and it took 120 years to do that, right?
Yeah.
But that is not business today. business today is those seconds that you're talking about, that in a minute you've got to be able to pivot and change when you think about the pandemic that has been happening, and the way that business is operating. And if you're not staying up to task with that, and but also at the same time staying true to what you do, then I think it can really be a detriment to your company for sure.
Absolutely. Well, what's exciting now, and you're seeing in the sports industry and sports tech, same things happen in the gaming and gambling industry, the banking industries. They're doing things so much faster than they did in the past, which is great for innovation. It's great for new ideas and new technologies to be absorbed. But the dangerous part of that is I think they're actually going too fast. They're taking legendary, established businesses and they're throwing in new concepts to try to stay relevant, to try to attract a younger audience. So it's a catch-22. I love it because we both have interest in technologies in the sports industry that you're seeing thrive. But if they're not brought in, nourished, and properly built business models upon those companies that are getting entree into those businesses, it could be like, how many musicians and singers have incredible songs that have never been heard in the world because the label bought it and it's been shelved. So I want to see these technologies nourished and cultivated into these different industries, but I want to make sure that these companies are actually going to thrive and be able to succeed, and these CEOs are going to actually be in a place where they have an ability to earn money and they have an ability to hire people and actually build real businesses. So we'll both see what happens. I love the adoption rate of new stuff into these legendary industries, but I just hope that they're properly used and grown upon.
Yeah, just trying to find that balance, right, that you said before. So
Yep.
what do you look for? You've got so many different fingers out there in so many different areas. What excites you about a company? What draws you to a company where you say, you know what, I want to work with those people?
Yeah, I always get excited when I see founders, whatever age, that I guess leave something safe, a corporate world or a corporate job. I don't even know if that's safe anymore, but they leave something that they're comfortable with and used to, and they go after their dreams. So I get reintroduced to being excited to that daily. To me, I'm very addicted to helping those people because I didn't have that support when I was growing and building what I built. I got my ass kicked every which way from Sunday. I made every mistake you could think of. I didn't have the right support system or any support system at all. And I love the ability to be able to make all of that make a little bit of sense now, where I get to help people navigate through what is a very difficult business world and making sure that you're making the right moves. And balance is key to everything. It's also very important for me to bite my tongue once in a while, take a step back and let these CEOs or founders get experience. They need to get beaten up a little bit. It helps them understand what the world is like, helps them understand how to navigate when times get tough. So I have to, I love being there so it doesn't get too far. But it is important that we all go through necessary business experiences to become seasoned, to become experienced, and to know how to handle situations, good and bad.
Yeah. Where do you think startups stumble most?
Poor valuations. Well, I shouldn't say poor valuations. Not enough time and money spent on what are they actually valued at. When they do that initial valuation, and myself included early on, bring a couple of friends together, you get 25%, you get 13%. People are just, you might as well just throw darts at a number. And then they get into a jam when they need to raise money, and now all of a sudden they didn't properly structure their entity correctly. They're diluted out of their own company. The founder, the CEO, now maybe owns 12% of his company when he's going into round two, and now he or she's working for somebody else. That is what I love to help people avoid: proper valuations. If you need to raise capital, I'll help you raise capital, but more importantly, I want to make sure it's the last capital that you need to raise. It's very important for companies to make money. It's very important for companies to put actual businesses in place that earn revenues and grow from those revenues. Forget about the market. Forget about going out into the market and trying to raise money. Forget about trying to be a unicorn. Look at what you're doing, make money, properly value yourself, and grow your company like Fortune 500 companies will grow their companies.
Yeah. And just giving them that support, I think it's probably invaluable, knowing that someone who's been as successful as you are and is as successful as you are is kind of helping guide their way. And
Yeah.
giving them that support, which is amazing. I want to jump back to that period and when you had the accident. You said you learned a lot about your business, and you learned a lot about you know, who you could rely on in your team, and your team being maybe too big, or just knowing that you had to pivot at that point. What do you think was, and you talked a little bit about yourself there as well, but what do you think was the most important thing that changed about you personally as a result of that accident?
If it forced me to change my model, it forced me to not be who I naturally am. And I'm glad I took that hit for a couple of reasons. First reason, that woman could have killed somebody and ruined the family. So I often joke, I'm still here, so take the hit, or we're all dead. So it's one or the other. But I think I'm still here. So secondly, it forced me to look at what my model was, and I could have continued to do that model incorrectly for maybe ever, but it wasn't the right model. I was not good for my health. Wasn't good for my mindset. I was last to eat, which I preach to founders now in companies: do not be last to eat. I thought that was a good thing. I thought me taking care of everybody else first, and if there's any crumbs at the end of the year, I would compensate myself for whatever my needs were. Wrong model. If you're first to eat and you don't go and buy a Lamborghini, or you don't go buy a $10 million house, you can take care of everybody else after. And then if times get tough, and your savings and your the way you spend money and the way that you care about money, there should be a nest egg there, and you can actually go to yourself for capital. You can actually, if the business needs money and you believe in it and you have earnings coming in, well, then you can be your own bank if you were first to eat. There's a lot of proper reasons to be first to eat, and I think the most important one is rewarding yourself. You need to feel self-worth. You need to make sure that you take care of yourself, because you're the one doing all this. You're the one putting your name on the line, your social security number on the line. You're getting a second mortgage on your house. There's all these things that you're doing, and you're risking for a year, 5 years, 20 years, 50 years, whatever the number is. And you're hoping for that moment where, it worked. Yeah, but what did you give up during all that time? What did you do to your body and your soul and your mind and the people around you? For me, I needed almost a death experience to snap out of the way that I was doing things, but also maintain my ability to be open to the world. Also maintain my ability to connect. So you can't change. You can't be a good, generous person and all of a sudden be a tyrant, negative, selfish person. You need to take all of these pluses, and I used to hate the word selfish, but as far as an entrepreneur and being a business person, the idea of selfish and taking care of yourself, whether it's your well-being, whether it's your bank account, that's okay, because you can do good things when you are in a sound, safe, calm place, and you can only get there if you got financial freedom, you have good health, and you're surrounded by what hopefully are really good, supportive people. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, it absolutely does. And I just think it's amazing advice and just invaluable, I think, for so many people. And we obviously don't want people to have a near-death experience to be able to have that perspective. But hopefully in listening to you, people will be able to take a step back and reevaluate where they are in this moment and how they're operating on a day-to-day basis and what they're getting out of their business versus what they're putting into it and what they're sacrificing. And I think you made a great point there, that sometimes we're giving our soul, which is at the risk of our health and relationships and everything else, and not realizing the impact that it's having. So I just think that that's beautiful advice. With all the businesses and all the dealings that you have and all the success that you've had, what, if anything, keeps you up at night?
I used to be a lot, but now there's nothing that keeps me up at night. I have a sense of control over my world. I'm very smart as to who I bring into it, so there's not unnecessary stress or triggers or there's a hamster wheel I used to be on, and it was fear of losing brands, fear of losing contracts, fear of losing certain partnerships. And that was because, again, it was not in my control. I was relying on other people's words. I was relying on other people to do the right thing. And that is an exhausting, scary place to be 365. I also, you know, I was always answering customer service questions, and there's things that I shouldn't have been doing 24/7 that kept me a nervous wreck. I had no balance of quality of life. I'm a workaholic. It's just who I am. I'll probably work till I'm dead. I love to provide value, and I love to do great things. But to longly answer your question, I'm trying to think. There's nothing that keeps me up at night because I'm exhausted throughout the day. Just go to sleep at night.
Right.
But for 15, 16, 17 years, yeah, I was worrying, nervous wreck. I've given myself Bell's palsy. I gave myself shingles. My DNA is Italian heritage, anxiety, nerves, everything you can list.
Guilt.
Tons of guilt. And so, I've watched generations before me live like that. And then I realized, well, what the hell? I'm not evolving as a human being if I know the outcome of certain behaviors and ways of life. I don't care how much money you have in the bank. It doesn't mean you're going to be happy. It doesn't mean that things are going to be easier. But you can reprogram your brain to not let things affect you, not be so sensitive to things, but also ensure that you don't let people take advantage of you. You don't let people get over on you. And for your own behaviors, you don't hurt people. And if you do, find a way, whether it takes a day or 10 years, to make it right, because that energy and that karma out there is going to bite you in the ass one day. So it's just do good things, the golden rule, and be very careful as to who you let into your life. And if you make a mistake, just be a man or woman about it and say, I messed up. Yeah, I shouldn't have let that person in my life. Own it, get over it, and your job is to make sure it doesn't happen again.
I love it. And Brian, it's no wonder you have so much success in your life, because the way that you look at the world, the way that you operate, your mindset, aside from being incredibly resilient and having a ton of grit and knowledge and experience, you have this mindset of doing good, giving back, within balance, right? So that it doesn't make you top heavy and you're falling over, but you have this mindset of taking a step back and really observing your process and how you're operating and showing up to your day, which I think is incredibly powerful, and I think is a testament to all of your success and who you are. So I know that people watching this today got great value out of it. So many nuggets of wisdom and so much information, I think, that's invaluable for our community, but anyone who really is looking to get into business and to make their claim in the world with their next great idea. So
Right.
I want to thank you for coming on. Any last words of advice that you have for people watching today?
Yeah, I was thinking of something else that it took me a long time to perfect, and I'm 99% there. Is something that's going to be very healthy for your listeners is to stop or find a way to stop wondering why someone else did something or why someone else said a certain things. You can't take ownership of somebody else's actions. That person was not raised in your environment. They were not given your set of tools. Didn't go through your household when you were growing up. So everybody acts differently. And I've spent so much time and wasted time and energy wondering, why did they do that? I don't understand. I would never do that. You got to stop that. Just chalk it up again to thanking them for doing that, because they taught you something. Maybe it was a vulnerability that you had about yourself, or an opening that you left open for someone to come in and upset you and cause some sort of disruption in your business or your personal life. So I always embrace someone to affect me for a moment because they taught me something about myself, and why did I let myself get affected? And again, the job of evolving and growing is to make sure that you don't repeat those experiences if you didn't like it. So
Yeah. I love it. It's amazing advice, and I think so much, so helpful for people watching, to anybody who's just trying to figure out how to operate in the world. And instead of 99% of our distress is worrying about the past and fretting about the future, and the only thing it does is ruin the present moment. So I think that
right.
speaks specifically to what you're talking about today. If people want to get in touch with you, Brian, this is you on LinkedIn, Brian J. Esposito, and your LinkedIn company profile, Esposito intellectual-enterprises-LLC, so they can get in touch with you there. And then also they can go to your website for your business, right? EIE.rocks, which I love. That's an awesome website. Very,
Thank you.
very memorable.
Thank you.
I want to thank you again for being here today. I really appreciate your time, your energy, your wisdom, your willingness to share and be open and tell us your story and really help others. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, it's my honor. I appreciate the time as
Yeah.
well. Thank you.
Absolutely. And for those who like this, you want to learn more, go to gameplanu.org. If you want to be part of the Game Plan U community, check us out. It is a lot of fun, and it's a great way to learn, grow your business. And if you want to get in touch with me, just email me at gameplanu.org or check me out on LinkedIn as well. Connect with me there. I want to thank Brian again for being here today, for your time, your energy again, and we will see you. Drew, thank you for tuning in today. A couple other listeners there. Appreciate that. And we will see you next time on Mindset Monday. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Denise. Take care.
Thank you.